Atoms are the smallest particles of an element. Atoms are the smallest particles of an element. So if I take any element and I break it down and I break it down and I break it down, the last thing that I'll have that I can still call that element is an atom. Atoms are tiny units that determine the properties of all matter. The properties of all matter. So they are the smallest particle of an element that still have the properties of that element. Because I can break an atom down further, but a proton doesn't act like gold. A certain number of protons in combination with a certain number of neutrons and electrons will act like gold. But a proton on its own does not act like gold. So the word for an atom comes from a Greek word atomos, which means unable to divide. So we now know that there are many different parts within an atom called the subatomic particles. We're going to only focus on 3 in this class. There are others. Protons are made of things. Neutrons are made of things. Electrons are made of things. But you won't really get into the study of those things until much later on in your science career, should that you follow that. Some subatomic particles have electrical charges. Protons are positive. Electrons are negative. And neutrons, as you should be able to figure out from the name, are neutral. So electrically neutral atoms have no overall charge. So the number of protons must equal the number of electrons. So if I have an atom with 5 protons and 5 electrons, there's no overall charge. If I have an atom with 6 protons and only 5 electrons, now I'm +1. I have an extra positive. If I have an atom that has 5 protons and 11 electrons, I would be -6. I have 6 more minuses. So in order to be neutral, you must have an equal number of protons and electrons. Now as far as their mass goes, our protons and neutrons are in the center of the atom in the nucleus, and each of them has a mass of about 1 AMU, an atomic mass unit. Electrons are not in the nucleus. Electrons move around the nucleus in a region called the electron cloud, which makes up the majority of the atom and is mostly empty space. An electron cloud is the largest region of the atom, but the electrons are so tiny and they have very, very little mass. Each electron's mass is equal to 1/1875th of the mass of a proton. And in fact, it's so small that we generally define it as having a 0 mass, 0 AMU. So your homework tonight will be to use this information to fill in this little table. And then we'll look at this question. So how do we know all this about atoms? Well, all of this comes from scientists who have studied this for hundreds of years now, and each of their different discoveries. We're going to focus on the ones listed in this table. And your homework tonight is to watch this video to fill in this entire table. This is a Tyler DeWitt video, and we will use him pretty often throughout the year. He does a great job of summarizing the videos in a very interactive way and going through information.